Have you ever wanted to be the first to know if aliens really exist? Well, with Nebula, you can be! Nebula is the streaming service that's home to It's Probably Not Aliens, as well as our YouTube channels. And the best part? All of our content goes up early on Nebula. So when we break first contact with ET, you'll be the first to find out. That's right, you'll be able to listen to the next episode of this show before anyone else. Plus, we post bonus content that you won't find any other place. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablynotaliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and be the first to know if this time it really is aliens. So I guess to get started, I should say that Scott, in the last people on this show know that I struggle.
The two of us,
people. Well, the internet, the people,
listeners,
If there's one thing that people know about me is that I haven't seen enough movies. I'm lacking the movie department, and that I'm usually very behind on new big trending things.
Well, I can tell you right now, whatever you're going to say is not going to help your case because we're recording this so
that is true
far in advance. But I like where your heart and your head are at.
Well, I will say, I think that I have nearly doubled the number of movies that I have seen in like volume in the past 2 weeks since we last recorded, because
excellent.
I have now watched K-pop Demon Hunters approximately 6,000 times since the last time we talked.
Nice. Now, is this because you're such a big fan? Or is there a particularly other big fan in your household?
There is another big fan in the house who wants to watch it all the time, and then when we're in the car, wants to listen to it on the radio all the time, and more or less it's just the only thing that is on any form of media playing when he is around.
Fantastic. I will say this. You are very lucky in this regard that you got a banger of a movie that your child is obsessed with, because my sister had her first child many years ago, and he was obsessed with the Angry Birds movie, and so we watched it was always on. Now, I've heard recently that some people say the second Angry Birds movie actually slaps. I don't care. I'm not talking about that. The first one, that was absolutely just a cash grab that came out what feels like a decade after Angry Birds was even relevant. That's the movie that he could not get enough of. It was just Angry Birds all the time. So at least you got K-pop Demon Hunters, which is very good.
Yeah, I've seen it compared to being this like, I don't even know if my kid is Gen Alpha. I feel like he's too young for that. Gen whatever is after Alpha or is Alpha. I don't know. But their version of Frozen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is true. I would actually enjoy that. I think can I actually go on a small rant about something I really love from K-pop Demon Hunters? If you don't know anything about K-pop Demon Hunters, like, just look it up. It's very good. Emily watched it, was obsessed with it, and then was like, we need a movie to watch one night. And she was like, hey, we could watch K-pop Demon Hunters. And I was like, oh, I haven't seen it. Sure. And it's very good.
Yep.
There is, I think, in the opening song, there's a lyric that one of them says that I believe Mira says, or it's a combination of some of them, that says, heels, nails, blade, mascara, fit check for my Napalm Era. And here's this is the thing that I've been going on and on about to just Emily. That is such a fucking good lyrical line that tells you everything you need to know about like really all of the characters, but specifically Mira, I believe, who's the one who says fit check for my Napalm Era. So fucking good. It is like one of the most lyrically dense and like meaningful things. Like it is like a lyric that is where no words are wasted, and it tells you so much about the characters. It's so very good. Whoever wrote it is so clever. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, it is definitely like as a movie, for a movie that is like it's one of those things where it's like you could tell there was a lot of love and care that went into like it. And like I love the movies where, especially when you have to watch it 6,000 times, that you know that there's like a lot of attention to detail and like stuff put into it. Like I love that the sword swooshes have the Hong Moon lines in them, so you know that like the weapons are powered by it. I loved that somebody made this big thing about how the theme of the movie and the Hong Moon itself is like a sort of metaphor for what mental health struggles are like in sort of a collectivist Asian culture like Korea. I love the body positivity of the fact that these ladies are not afraid of eating tons of stuff, which is good because the K-pop idol scene has a really bad eating disorder problem. And like, just, I don't know, like there's a lot of just,
I love the little tiger creature with the eyes and the funny little hat.
Yeah. My son is convinced it is a dinosaur, but,
close enough. They're very funny.
I like that Jinyu gets a nice character arc.
Jinyu gets a character arc. The Soda Pop song slaps.
I do like that the Soda Pop song is literally about eating their souls, and it's like all dressed up to be all cute and fun.
It's very good.
The song Your Idol or whatever like that, when they're like all dressed up like demons, fucking rules.
Yeah. What's that? Yeah. That has another good lyric in it too, where it's like, oh, can I get the mic a little higher? That is very good double meaning because he wants the music to be louder. Make the mic a little higher, or get the mic a little higher. And also, I believe they're like floating in the air as demons, so he's like needs it physically higher. I don't know, man. It's just such a good movie, and you won the lottery with it being one that your child is obsessed with.
I love the touch of anime. That always is fun.
But all right, this is the other thing too. Emily said that there is a possibility that they're looking into making a live action series out of this, and like I get it because like K-dramas are like a thing. But like, it's so much of the identity of this movie, I feel, and in its visuals, in its comedy, is so tied to the cartooniness of it.
Yeah, I don't know if like the scene where what's his name, Daniel Kim from freaking Lost, is gonna come out as much, where he goes like it's like all eyes pop out,
facial expressions. Yes.
The only actor, like when you look at it, who could actually like do it, who could just be the character and another like breakout performance from one of my favorite actors, Ken Jeong. I feel like is just playing himself in that movie.
100%.
And also that my son sometimes will just be like, "Hi, Bobby," like. Yeah, his favorite lines. He goes, "Hi, Bobby." He says, "Couch, couch, couch, couch" a lot.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
couch.
So But today, so this is a podcast called "It's Probably Not Aliens," and we are leaving.
No, sorry. Today it's actually a podcast where we just talk about K-pop demon hunters for the next hour, I think is what we're going to do.
Yeah. But this is kind of a weird episode to be your onboarding for, but we're leaving Angels behind, and this is one of the things that we do is that we're kind of between blocks of content. We're moving into a new season or new. I love that we have to do one season per episode of Ancient Aliens, basically.
Yeah,
but we tackle
one season of this show is one episode of of ancient aliens that we have to debunk, because that's what we actually do on this show. Like Tristan said, we're leaving angels behind. You don't even want to know what we did to the demons. All right.
I hope there's an episode on that later on.
I'm one of the hosts of this show, Scott Nice Wonder. That's my thing. I know nothing except for how just incredibly hard the musicians and lyricists and songwriters went for K-pop Demon Hunters.
Yeah, I know that one really well too. My name is Tristan Johnson, and today we are kind of doing a thing that is the thing that we start every season with to kind of keep it light and fun, which is a thing that Ancient Aliens would never do, which is we start by talking about all the things that we got wrong. So we do corrections episodes where we just collect YouTube comments, emails, any way that people can kind of get in touch with us to tell us about how we're wrong. I look up some stuff, and sometimes it's how we're wrong, and sometimes it's like you touched on something that's actually really interesting and you didn't go deep enough, and they kind of give us a bonus explanation. So every block of episodes we start with that to kind of keep ourselves honest.
And also just sort of, it feels also we're catching up with ourselves. Like, we've done, a lot of these are from fairly old episodes, but we're catching up, and I think it's fun to sort of look back on some older episodes, or even just some recent episodes, just to sort of like go back and be like, oh yeah, remember this? Remember we talked about that? It's just fun.
Yep. And I've got some good ones today, and the first one especially cuts at the heart of the very point of this show, which I think is a very interesting thing. So, but we got a bunch of fun stuff to go into, because this show is fun and good, in my opinion. Yeah. That's why we keep making them. So
let's get into it. We need like a corrections thing. You know what? I put this on the soundboard, so we'll just use this. This is our transition to the first correction, and I'll hit it in between each correction.
How do we do it?
Just a good transition sound effect.
Oh boy.
Are we gonna get sued for that one? Unclear.
Please, Warner Brothers, you're doing fine. I just read an article about how apparently you've released a bunch of real bangers this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
You did all that stuff to get all your taxes in order. That's good.
They apparently they're like the one movie studio that's producing, like, they've produced like almost all hits this summer. And everyone else is kind of struggling. So they're cooking. They're cooking over at WB.
They're cooking.
Now release. What was that Will Forte movie that got killed? It was like a Looney Tunes Will Forte movie.
Wile E. Coyote. Released Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, or whatever it's called. Release Scoob Holiday Haunt. What are you doing? The movie's finished. Release it.
Or that Batman movie that got just completely...
Batgirl. Release Batgirl with Brendan Fraser. Oh, anyway.
Butthole Cut of Cats. Can they get that one out?
Release the buttholes.
Okay, so the first one was just an interesting comment about our videos, and it came from like a really old episode, but then when I looked it up, I was like, this is actually a thing that has like been on my mind a little bit lately too, which is that if we make our content is about, showcasing bad ideas and then showing why they're bad. And there is a argument, and one that I have been on the record for supporting, which is the idea of like, hey, isn't debunking people in some ways taking seriously and giving credit, or at least a second chance, to give the debunked platform? And so
just I guess to maybe summarize, if I'm understanding correctly, if we are looking at Ancient Aliens, the TV show, I always have to specify, because we're not actually looking at Ancient Aliens as the concept. We're looking at the TV show Ancient Aliens. If we're looking at that show and we're debunking, our friends Georgia Tsoukalos, David Childress, are we giving them credit or credibility by treating their claims seriously, that it's worth debunking, and therefore sort of reinforcing that they should be taken seriously. Is that sort of what this comment is saying?
Yeah, so it's written in a way so that's kind of hard to parse, but doesn't making because this is from our YouTube channel, a video debunking others actually give credit or at least a second chance to the debunked and discredits the debunker, even if he's right. Which maybe isn't the point they were trying to make, but I do think that one of the things that I have talked about lately is how, like, I really dislike sort of like Twitch political debate streams, and I really hate the YouTube channel Jubilee with its like what's it called, that like 15 people do elder abuse on Jordan Peterson because his like brain isn't working very good. Or the one where they, without telling him, put Mehdi Hassan in a room full of Nazis and like all sorts of shit like that.
Oh God. Jubilee lost the plot. I think there was maybe a brief period where I was like, okay, interesting. Not that I watched them. I feel like I've only watched people react to Jubilee. I've never actually watched Jubilee. But like, I feel like there was a point where it's like, I can kind of understand what they're going for. Whereas nowadays it's like, oh, no, they're not trying to like have a broader point. They're just making content.
Yeah.
Never mind.
And I constantly think of like how there was this period where like there was this television program in the UK where they had a British neo-Nazi on the show. And when he was on the talk show, he got fucking obliterated. He was always on the defensive. Everybody talked about how his ideas are reprehensible, and like he couldn't defend anything. And the show actually increased enrollment in like neo-Nazi organizations in Britain. It didn't turn it down. And I currently, by the time this comes out, I might not be. Thanks, Bart Carney. But I work in a field where we are trying to sort of shape the narrative about how we think about immigrants in Canada. And one of the sort of like discussions that has come up is like myth busting and like, like going into like why these false ideas about immigrants are wrong effective, because apparently what happens very often is when you do that, the person thinks about the wrong idea, they remember that, and they don't remember, or they don't like you can sometimes end up just reinforcing the myth even by debunking it. Right. And so you want to switch to like positive stories in the other direction. And there is like a sort of growing body of psychological research that like debunking is not as effective as say like rebunking, or like sort of like the term of like giving people educational information, letting them come to their own conclusions, not being confrontational, and sort of like I teach a workshop on microaggressions, and like one of the things that comes up is that the psychological research about what to do about microaggressions is that if you are to respond to a microaggression with like, hey, that shit was racist, don't do that, you're more likely to cause the person who did the microaggression to double down and retreat, because that attacks their self-concept and they feel defensive about it. And it could be like, something like that could be complicated. So the way to kind of go around it that we talk about is get them to clarify what it is that they said and what they believe, give them the educational information about why that idea is wrong, and then talk about how that comment made you feel, the I statements, as they say in therapy. And that is sort of the path forward. And that is a much more effective strategy, just like how highlighting positive immigrant stories is turning out to be a more successful strategy to combat misinformation and myths. And so, and this is the thing where I would say that our show does, maybe this is like kind of the thing I'm talking about, how like this show has evolved over the years, where we dwell less in the conspiracy and go more into the actual thing behind it. Because I think that in some ways we do entertain the ancient aliens claim, but I would say that if you were to like map it out by the minutes of the show,
that we put a lot more of our emphasis on the actual information about it.
I would say that's an interesting point, because I would say typically in the early days of this podcast, we would do like the first half of the show is the claim, and then the second half of the show is debunking it. And I feel like for a while, like at least for the last year or two, we've been doing like the first 15 to 20 minutes is the claim, and then the next hour is the real history and culture and stuff like that. So we've definitely shrunk the entertaining the claim more and more over the years. And I would be interested to know, because I think you're right. I think that makes for a more helpful like product in terms of like we get to talk about the real life thing for longer and not entertain the bunk claim for so long. But I am interested to know, and I am asking for feedback here, which is like a grave sin on the internet as a creator, but I am asking for feedback. I'm curious how many of you noticed that, and if you like it, if you wish we would spend more time making fun of the claims or going deeper into it, or if you like how much time we're spending on the real history and culture of things. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Because like basically like if you want to think about it from a psychological perspective, like when you debate something with somebody who has a deplorable position, very often because you're focused on that as the thing, a lot of times people will walk away with like, what's like the sort of way that I categorize this thing in my head. And it is that it is about the bad idea. And that leads to, once exposed over and over again, normalizing the bad idea through just mere exposure. It's literally called the mere exposure effect.
Mere exposure effect, yeah.
But in ours, when we get into the claim, we actually very quickly get into the history, and all of a sudden this video isn't about are the pyramids laser beams, it is Egypt is cool.
It's Egypt is cool, or it's about, sometimes we'll talk about like, let's talk about the people who have made these claims and talk about them a little bit more rather than the claim itself. I think that's interesting. I'm one of the two hosts of this show, and I never really put it together that we've slowly but surely made that change. Was that a conscious decision by you as you were researching these episodes over the past couple of years?
I think that what happens is that very quickly in Ancient Aliens, I was finding that they have run out of ideas, and there's a lot more episodes where like, all right, I'm going to debunk this. Oh, never mind. They actually like made it up. And so
right.
There's very often like not like, it's not that interesting what their claim is or where it comes from. I will still do a lot if like there's something like that it's that interesting about the bad idea and where it comes from. But for the most part, it's like, this is an interesting topic. The way that they're wrong is really bad, because it's either just like extremely lazy interpretations, because the show is honestly like what's happening is I'm noticing even in season 2 that the show is already getting very lazy. And they're either just making shit up, or they are just like going for like the absolute lowest, like, because they know that nobody's going to check this. So they're just like, they're not really trying very hard. They don't even they're not even trying to make their case all that strongly in the episodes anymore. But, and so honestly, it's just chasing like where the interesting stuff is. And I guess I would go more into it. But also I would say that there is something to the fact that like debunking does help, just not as much as we thought. And it's not in a way that like it works better for like a format like this, because it's not live. It's not like we're bringing somebody with bad ideas and debating them. We are providing information that will let people come to their own conclusions, and we can be one step on a journey towards things. And the only way that we could do so is that if we have a high perceived credibility, and so we have to like, we have to establish trust, and that's why we do stuff like this.
That's why we do these corrections. Yeah. To be like, hey, look, we're not always right. Ancient Aliens would never do a corrections episode. We talk about this every time we do one of these. They never do a corrections episode.
Yeah.
but we've done several. I think that's great. Hey, look, I literally just made a video that has like 900,000 views about debunking Ben Shapiro's review of Superman. So like, I can only speak for myself when I say it is, there's always going to be a place for just straight up clowning on people and debunking, and making fun of people. I made fun of Ben Shapiro, but also in my video, I did talk about factual stuff in history. And I will say, that is the thing that people have walked away from in the comments the most. Like, they've left the most common theme in my comments is like, because it was partly debunking his opinions on the movie, but it was mostly just about debunking the factual stuff he got wrong. And a lot of people were like, thank you for, I learned so much watching this. Like, it was a lot of people being like, I never knew this about this. Thank you for the history lesson about this character that's been around for almost 100 years. And so I think that is a common theme, is like just people being like, this was really interesting, and I'm glad you did this, and I'm glad I learned. So even though I did spend a good amount of time making fun of Ben Shapiro, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, it is also fun to just, like you said, sort of present information and be a stepping stone to people learning a little bit more. And I think that's really fun.
Mm-hmm. And I think it does well for, building people's, mental, like, I think that we give people the tools to figure out the kinds, like, I think that instead of focusing on like, these people are wrong, here's all the reasons that they're big wrongy pants. It's more like, this is why they are wrong. This is the ideas that led them to this conclusion. And
yeah,
but who knows? Maybe I'm being too self-congratulatory or something. But that's the way that I think about it.
We're allowed. All right, should I hit the button? Next one.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't do that. That's too much.
Leader, Batman. I mean, leader. Okay, in an episode 59 of the show, I mentioned that there was a genre of Japanese thing that was about like live action using heavy practical special effects that like basically like Power Rangers, like Super Sentai.
Like Power Rangers, that's what I was thinking, yeah.
Assembling into robots, like basically like kind of like superhero meets kaiju stuff.
Yes. Dress someone up in a big robot costume, put them on a set that looks like a small town, and have them push stuff over and fight a big lizard.
Mm-hmm. So somebody pointed out that they're 2 years late to this, but the genre is called tokusatsu, and it's less the giant robots thing. It's more costume superheroes. The giant robots actually started because of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So
Supaidāman.
I don't know too much about the live, the Japanese Spider-Man show. You might have more to say on that.
I made a video about it. Mm-hmm.
So go watch that, I guess.
Many years ago. It was many years ago, so I don't actually remember much of it. So I apologize. Yeah, Supaidāman.
So
was the first live action Spider-Man. And it was very different. Extremely different than the Spider-Man comic books, but it was, I don't know. It's just fun. You can watch it on YouTube. It is very much in this vein of, fun practical effects. Spider-Man does have a giant robot. That is true. He's been since introduced in the comics as well, and I think even maybe one of the Spider-Verse films as like an Easter egg or a part of it. I can't remember. But they always try to work in a Supaidāman reference.
Nice.
Very fun.
So the genre being tokusatsu is broadly correct.
It is tokusatsu, right? With an extra S there.
Yeah, tokusatsu. So tokusatsu is a genre of Japanese live action TV or film that uses practical special effects, but it actually embodies like sci-fi, kaiju, superhero, all of those genres. And and mecha, which is its own sort of genre. So it's still considered a genre in a way, but it's also like kind of like it's not. Sometimes it's less a form of storytelling than it is like a sort of vibe of movie or vibe of content.
Yeah.
It has certain touch
Absolutely.
points, and it does have superhero shows. Some examples were Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, which when it came to the Americas was called Power Rangers. But it's also broader because, like, one of the things that I feel like I totally missed when we talked about this, and it makes a lot of sense, is that the origin of this genre is fucking Godzilla, which is like, yeah, kaiju movies and like
big monster.
Yeah, Giant Robo and also Sentai, which is Super Sentai, is both. So these are like also just as central, and the giant robots starting because of Spider-Man is actually incorrect. So there's a double correction on the correction.
We're debunking the correction?
Yeah. So live action giant robots existed before Spider-Man. There was a show called Giant Robo, which came out in 1967, which has giant robots in it. Spider-Man, though, is the first to pair a superhero with their own giant robot. Which then pushed Toei to add giant robots to Super Toei,
yeah.
which added which basically made them add giant robots to Super Sentai from about 1979 onwards. So it is Giant Robo does predate Supaidāman.
This is fun for me because I've talked before that I'm not an anime or manga person. Are you at all?
I go in and out. I think we've talked about this before, but basically my main thing is that when I was a kid, one of my cousins lived in my house with me. And he was like a Gen Xer, so he was like a full, like maybe like 15, 16 years older than me. And it meant that I got, as like a little kid in the early 90s, exposed to a lot of like Gen X stuff, which means that I got exposed to, like, he was like a nerd, so he was into like kind of like 1980s anime. And so as a kid, I did really I got really into like 1980s, 1990s anime way before I should have, because I watched Akira at an age when you should not be watching Akira. I saw things that probably, like, given like my my interests in art and stuff like that, is like probably been inspired by the fact that I like this is the kind of like older brother figure that like had me watching Alien when I was like 8 years old, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I sort of have a soft part in my heart for anime from like the late 80s and early 90s. Like I like Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Pat Labor 2, those kinds of things are really good. I then also have a soft spot for the sort of early, because like I'm older than I'm on the older side of, like, you know, the listener base here. But so I got like into a lot of like the sort of first Funimation dubbing projects that happened in the 90s and 2000s. So when I was growing up, like I have a soft spot for like Dragon Ball Z and Gundam Wing and like all those kind of shows that were sort of the first stabs of like doing a lot of that. Then I kind of drifted out of it, and now I'm back and like I'm trying to find good stuff, but like it's very hit or miss for me. We talked about Spriggan last season. I liked Spriggan.
I was going to say, I think we talked about some stuff. Just to clarify, in case anyone doesn't remember my stance, it is not that I am against any manga or anime. It's just I don't know where to start or what to do as someone who's never...
you watch Studio Ghibli movies.
Yeah, I guess I just mean like TV shows. I've not watched like an anime TV show. I watched lots of Yu-Gi-Oh! Growing up. I'll say that. And my brother watched a lot of what is it? Zoids? Is it Zoids or Zords? I think it's Zoids. Zoids anime. Yes, it is Zoids. My brother watched a lot of Zoids. So I know Zoids by osmosis. Anyway, that's about all I did. And I watched like the first season of Pokemon.
Yeah.
But
That show's still going. Ash is still at
still
it.
Going.
I will say I did
Yeah.
get partway through. So Matt, aka Mildred, aka Thought Slime, has been really pushing Full Metal Alchemist, the good one, not the bad one, as it was described to me.
The bad one.
Okay. And so I did get partway through watching that, and I kind of got distracted. And so I at some point I'm going to get back into finishing. I think it's Brotherhood is the name of the show, or Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I guess they made a version that was not very loyal, not very close to the thing, and then they made a new one that was.
Here's the thing, Tristan. Here's the thing too. I've also heard this, and I don't remember which one is which.
Yeah.
So
there's also another one that I kind of tried watching, and I didn't really like, and then I found out later it was fascist, so that's fun.
Oh no!
The one where people use high wire things to fight giant toddlers. Attack on Titan. That's what it's called.
Attack on Titan. That's the one.
Yeah.
Well, that's annoying, but I will say on the Power Rangers front, just as a closeout of this section, I suppose, I highly recommend the book More Phenomenal by Joshua Moore. More Phenomenal. How the Power Rangers Conquered the World. And I am extremely biased here because it was the first book, I think, that someone reached out to me to read ahead of time and provide like a quote for the back of the book. And so it's very fun. My quote is on the Amazon page if you want to buy it. But you should also not, if you can, buy it not from Amazon. Buy it from like a bookstore. Buy it from bookstore.org or bookshop.org. That's the one. That's better than buying from Amazon.
Also, I guess I also remember a very funny thing where that the Western Power Rangers had a season where the Blue Ranger was a kid, but because they were still borrowing from the Japanese show for all of the fight scenes and stuff like that, the Blue Ranger just turned into an adult during those scenes, which is very funny.
Did Power Rangers Turbo was the movie where that happened. I don't know if it was the whole series, but the movie for sure did that.
Yep.
That was very funny.
All right.
Anyway,
the next question's a very short one, and it's just a fun fact that I just thought was a very funny comment, which was, we do in fact have a word for concentrated sonic waves capable of moving big rocks. They're called explosions.
All right, fair enough. Good call. That is fair.
Yep. All right. Next.
Moving on already.
Okay, here was one that we got from an email from Marcus from Ireland. So here's the full email. So,
nice.
Dear Tristan and Scott, love your pod and the diligent work you put into debunking and reacting to Ancient Aliens nonsense. Thank you so much. On the recent Archimedes episode, you mentioned the Lord of the Flies. A misconception with that story is that it's about humanity writ large, how our civility is a mask to hide barbarism. The reading I prefer with the author Golding as context is more pointed. He was a teacher of a British private school boys and thought they were fucking awful gremlins. Which is a broader political and genre sense, doing a island based on an adventure book, a genre rife with colonial and racist undertones, in the intended audience, Imperial Boys, and showing how fucked up it becomes is much more interesting thing in my opinion. So it's like, yeah, like it kind of is like the inversion of like at the time, if you like understand the context of Lord of the Flies, that like there were a bunch of these like evil kids who were like reading all these like really colonialist adventure fiction. And then it's like, let's put them on an island, see how they actually would do it. And then they fucking turn into monsters. So childhood does not always equate to innocence. As an aside, another ancient site that could be used for Ancient Aliens is that of Newgrange, Ireland's own. If you ever cover that, I look forward to the mispronunciations with eager and sadistic glee. Oh boy, yeah. Irish is a fucking language, I will say that. So, in response...
before you dive into sort of your response to it, I do want to say, I've heard of a similar reading of Lord of the Flies that is basically the fact that it is all boys is a very intentional. And I remember a couple of years ago, there were like rumors that they were going to do a gender swapped Lord of the Flies movie with all like young girls. And I think everyone was like, but that wouldn't work though. that's goes against what the sort of reading is
Isn't
meant
that,
to be.
Isn't that what Yellow Jackets is?
I actually don't know. I've heard of Yellow Jackets, but I don't know what it's about.
Me neither. Interesting story about this. In a book called Humankind, there actually is a really interesting research chapter of that about the real, a real Lord of the Flies situation that happened, where a bunch of kids borrowed a boat and then got lost, and it like got wrecked on an island and were discovered only like, I think like a year later, or if not like a year, like several months. And not only were the kids fine, they helped each other out, and even one of the kids broke his arm, and they like took care of him and like made sure he was okay. And it's like actually like, because like the reason I talked about it in the episode is because Lord of the Flies is brought up as like, this is what human nature is like, we're all evil. And it's like, actually, when like the real version of that exact thing happened, we actually rose to the better angels of our nature kind of thing. So I want to get into like a little bit about a thing that you talked about, which was really good. Like, one, Golding was a teacher. Yes, he taught at Bishop Woodworth School from 1940 to 1962. He worked with a lot of unruly British schoolboys who did indeed inspire the novel, and used classroom exercises like group fights that kind of fed into his writing. He didn't call them gremlins, but he did, which I imagine was your own term, so don't worry. But he did write about them as being precocious and difficult to work with. And he did have, he maintained discipline and authority, observed them. He was very critical of them. He didn't think too highly of his students.
To be fair, I come from a family of teachers. Like, everyone comes home. My brother will come home and be like, God, these kids are so stupid. I don't know of a single teacher that's like, God, I love these kids. It's always like, oh my God, these kids.
Yeah. So to kind of get into it, like, yes, the kids that time were reading like colonial and imperialist stuff, and so the novel is a critique of British imperialism and their concept of being culturally superior to like indigenous peoples. And so they sort of undermine the idea that like British people were morally superior by like creating the same conditions.
Gotcha.
And there was a genre, like it was apparently written as a direct response to a book called The Coral Island by R.M. Ballantyne, which came out in 1857, where the Ballantyne boys, quote, civilized savages. And so Golding's idea was that the civilized boys themselves become savages. Like, so it was like sort of like a response to that. And it was a popular Victorian British genre. You had people like Ballantyne, people like G.A. Henty, who promoted a imperial ideology. This was the time when like the scramble for Africa was happening, and like Europeans were super fucking high on imperialism.
Yeah. Okay.
And and the thing is that Golding served in the Royal Navy, fought in D-Day, saw human brutality firsthand, and he has quoted saying, "Man produces evil as a bee produces honey." So he didn't exactly have a high opinion of humanity, and had a sort of pessimism about our fragility. And also published it in 1854, which was during like post-war decolonization period, where Britain's empire was collapsing and people were questioning the values of imperialism, which made the critique especially pointed. I think that you are right on this. I also think that I was also right on this. Like, I think that it was about more than one thing, because I think that it does.
For sure.
There's definitely a good case to make that Golding also just had a very bleak view of human nature itself, but on top of that, also was responding to a bunch of things. He contained multitudes.
Yeah, I would say, just as a broad point there, sort of what you're saying. I have, especially recently, gotten into a good number of debates, conversations, discussions, if you will, heated discussions with people who I guess don't seem to understand that stories, narratives, books, movies, shows, can have more than one theme or more than one message they're trying to convey. So yeah, it can be multiple things, as you're saying. But again, this was not necessarily my reading of it. I know that several people had that sort of reading of it when that a rumor was floating around about Lord of the Flies, but it's all young girls, and everyone was like, I don't think that would work. I've not read Lord of the Flies, or I mean, I have, but the last time was when I was in high school, so it has been a while. But I'll always remember my English teacher hammered this in to my head. Piggy's glasses represent civilization, and when they break, that's it. That's the last piece of civilization left, and everything goes haywire.
Yeah, this is why the humanities is great, and it's discussing a bunch of things. And this is why, like, yeah, I mean, I could talk a whole thing about how media literacy is really bad, and like how the way that we talk about media today, we like consume it so fast that like we don't have a good grasp on like nuance and like the whole thing about how like today media literacy is so low that like you can't have a villain who is problematic, because it's like,
yeah, or you can't have a hero. Even worse than that to me is you can't have a hero that's problematic. I'm like, you can you can have a hero that's problematic. I wish I like or yeah, I don't know, just like, what was it, like fucking Scott Pilgrim. I always talk about how much I love the movie Scott Pilgrim. I think it's definitely up there with one of my favorite movies. And it's not because I think Scott's a good guy. I've talked about this so often. The final fight scene, quote unquote, of the movie, he faces off against Nega Scott. And the whole thing is they don't actually fight because regular Scott says, oh no, he's just a good guy. So the movie is beating you over the head at the 11th hour to let you know that Nega Scott, the exact opposite of Scott Pilgrim, is a good guy. So what does that say about Scott Pilgrim? Just so we're all clear. So I don't know. I think I would agree with you there. I think I made a whole video about this as well, where I'm just like, we can allow our favorite characters to be problematic. Scott Pilgrim is an asshole. He's such a dick and a jerk. And he's so well written. Like, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. And the important thing about Scott Pilgrim versus the World is the overall message, at least from what I could figure out, which is that maybe you shouldn't objectify women because women aren't prizes to be won in a video game. And that is like the entire point of the fucking comic.
Perfect. Knives Chow has my favorite line in the movie. It's her last line she ever says. When Scott is like, basically like, I guess I'll just go date Knives now instead of Ramona. And Knives says, I'm too cool for you anyway. And I just love that so much. It's such a good character arc for her, from being like someone who wants Scott's approval to being someone who is like, you don't deserve me. I'm too cool for you. But she says it in like a fun, it's so good. It's so good. It's a good movie.
Scott Pilgrim should be a thing that we now, like, because of like how the boys these days are getting like fucking drunk on Andrew Tate bullshit and everything. We need to give them, like, I feel like Scott Pilgrim's a good one to be like, look, treating women like prizes in a video game, like, which is sort of like the way that like incels think about like relationships, is fucking weird and dumb.
I don't want to derail this by talking about it, but I had a friend, because Scott Pilgrim is one of my top favorite movies. And I had a friend who'd never seen it, and I was like, you should watch it. And she watched it, and she was like, I just don't think I really like Scott, like, as a character. I don't think he's like a good person. And I was like, correct. Yes. You got it. That's it. You're right. 100%. And it was after I was like, yeah, you're not supposed to like him. Like, that's his whole thing. That it was only after that she was like, oh, well then, okay, then I guess the movie is good then. Because previously she was like, I don't like this character, and I don't like a movie having this character as a main character because I feel like it's sending a wrong message. I'm like, no. If the message you got is that he's an asshole, and that's the movie that's the message the movie's trying to send, I think the movie did a pretty good job. I think there are some people who don't read into it, and I think that's why there's that Nega Scott scene at the end to be like, hey, just so we're all clear, regular Scott is an asshole.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can talk for hours about this. I think it's a great movie. I love it a lot.
Yeah. Comic's not bad either. I like the art style.
Yeah.
How do you like the anime?
I like the anime. I like the anime a whole lot. I think it's great.
I got to think about it how it responds to the. I do appreciate that they got like the whole cast of the old movie to be in it, which is nice. But I think about how it responds in the idea of like how Scott Pilgrim versus the World is a book that is designed to beat young men over the head and say stop objectifying women. If like the anime has some kind of like response to that in there, because yeah,
I mean because the anime doesn't have Nega Scott, but it has what is it, older Scott played by Will Forte, where Nega Scott's music plays when he's on screen, I believe, which is supposed to be sort of interesting. But he's actually, I think it's like, oh gosh, it's been a while since I watched it. We can't. Okay. We can't be.
Okay. The next one is
I like the anime.
The next one is a response to. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. The next one is a response to Archimedes episode. So I said that you would not be able to heat the ships hotter than the mirrors because it would melt the mirrors. But that's actually a misunderstanding of thermodynamics. So here's what Massimo Cole wrote. So lenses and mirrors can get things hotter than themselves. They do it all the time. If you've ever had a solar concentrator oven, the pot that mirrors focus sunlight onto can be hundreds or even thousands of degrees in industrial applications, but the mirrors are still cool enough to touch. They are no hotter than any other bit of metal left out lying in the sun, same as how a magnifying glass can start a fire while the lens itself is perfectly cool. This is not breaking the thermodynamic rule because mirrors and lenses are not shining their own light. They're just heating things with their own black body radiation. They are focusing the much more energetic black body radiation from some other source, like the sun, so the reflective or transparent things, the temperature of the light source is the limit, not the temperature of the focusing apparatus. And so you were 150,000% correct. I fucked up physics in this one. So you can make a target hotter than the mirrors with or lenses by reflecting light. The limit is from the light source and not the optics. So mirrors and lenses don't heat much themselves. They just redirect the energy from the sun, and it keeps the mirrors. So you can actually, solar concentrators do heat up to over 1,000 degrees Celsius while the mirrors are still cool. And that the maximum temperature is the source's black body temperature. And so optics can't exceed that. So you couldn't.
I guess that makes sense though, right? Not like when you think about it, because when like there's that classic sort of experiment of like a car that's painted black, it gets hotter in the daytime than a car that's painted white, and it's because the black paint is absorbing much more sunlight and heat versus the white paint, which is reflecting sunlight and heat and things like that, or at least sunlight. It's reflecting sunlight, which is the source of the heat. So if you have a mirror, it's reflecting way more than something that's painted black. It's reflecting ideally like nearly everything if it's like perfectly shiny and polished. So it makes sense that it wouldn't get as hot because it is reflecting more than absorbing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's like a whole, I'm trying to like quickly look up how to explain what black body radiation is. And I'm like,
I was going to ask, but I didn't know if you had it in you.
As far as I could tell, it's just like the energy that is like actually coming out of the object, like the sun or whatever.
Gotcha.
Solar concentrators do heat material to thousands of degrees while staying near ambient. The limit is still the sun's 5,800 degrees Kelvin. So can't beat that. All right, next. All right. So the next one is about our Montauk episode from last 2 seasons ago, I guess. So Light Halcyon wrote this comment and said that they actually grew up near Montauk and I was so ready to have a correction for you guys, but you really nailed it. I guess I'll just point out that we forgot to mention the lighthouse in Fun Things to Do in Montauk, and it's a great place to watch meteor showers. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Because if you remember, there was a little bit where I talked about the sort of like tourist attractions in the area.
Sure.
So the lighthouse is one of Montauk's most iconic attractions, and it's famous for history, architecture, and really good views. And it is frequently ranked as one of the top things to do there, even seen as a must-visit spot, especially for sightseeing and photography.
I'm looking it up on Google Images. Oh, so pretty. The Montauk Point Lighthouse. Oh, that's gorgeous.
See?
I mean, it's like a picturesque lighthouse. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just really, really pretty.
Well, it's in
really great spot.
It's in Montauk Point State Park. And the big thing is that the park stays open during events like the Perseids. And the upper parking lot is specifically noted as one of the best stargazing spots. So,
I mean, I believe it. It looks like there's just nothing else around. And it is just on this like really picturesque, like not a full peninsula, obviously, but like in that sort of vein, just like a little landmass sticking out into the sea. It's so pretty.
So yeah,
Jealous.
If you ever find yourself in Montauk based on our episode, add the lighthouse to your list.
I mean, that is just a postcard. That looks like it's not even real. And I'm on actually DuckDuckGo images, not Google images, so I get the option to hide AI-generated images, so I know these are real.
Beautiful.
Goodness gracious.
Okay. But next one. Next correction. Okay. This is the one that I think I might be the most embarrassed about. Out of all the things I could get wrong, I think this has done the most damage. So I referenced in an episode that the peace treaty between the United Federation of Planets and the Romulans was the Khitomer Accords, which was not the case. The Treaty of Algeron was the treaty with the Romulans, not the Khitomer Accords with the Klingons.
Tristan, how could you?
The Khitomer Accords. So the Khitomer Accords were the canonical peace treaty with the Klingons, but the Treaty of Algeron was the one that the Federation signed with the Romulans. Specifically, was the one that outlined that the Federation is not allowed to develop stealth technology, which was the thing I was talking about in the plot of the Star Trek episode, which is the sort of there's an episode of Star Trek where they have to check out a Federation ship that has developed a sort of illegal cloaking technology, but it kind of like makes it so that it like fuses into rocks. So,
God, I gotta watch more Star Trek.
Well, here's the thing: the Treaty of Algeron never happened on screen. So that's another big one because. What? So I'm guessing that they were anticipating that Enterprise was going to go for a full 7 seasons. Because the timeline of Enterprise would have lined it up with this war that the Federation had with the Romulans and ended with this treaty. So, and it banned the Federation from developing cloaking technology, the Treaty of Algeron that ends it. And the Romulans are not bound by this rule. It also was a treaty that created the neutral zone, which is such a iconic part of the Romulan Empire and like the sort of Romulan stories. And in TOS, the 1960s Star Trek show, they do refer to it because basically ever since this war ended, nobody has seen a Romulan since. There's a whole episode of TOS where they see a Romulan for the first time in like 100 years, and they're always like, whoa, they look just like Vulcans. And then they have to like point out that like, yeah, they actually are, they're sister species of each other.
I'm surprised. Yeah, I was going to say I'm surprised that's like, just give it time. They're making so much Trek. Give it time. It's going to be like the Star Wars thing where like every small thing that's mentioned will eventually be in a movie or a TV show, right?
Yeah.
Like the first movie mentioned the Clone Wars, and it's like, now we have to have a whole TV show about the Clone Wars, baby.
I will say, I think there actually is there's been talks, I don't know too much about it, but there's talks about that Paramount is developing a movie that is like a sort of supposed to be like an origin story for the Star Trek universe. And so it might cover this period, because a lot, the big thing about it is that TOS, the 1960 Star Trek show, is basically like, it takes place in sort of the wake of this war. And so like, although not exactly, because the war ended like probably about like 70-ish years after TOS, like before TOS. And so now it's sort of like the wake of like the war that happened with the Klingons and freaking not Strange New Worlds, the first season of Star Trek Discovery. It's all complicated. The Khitomer Accords was though actually the Klingon and Federation long-term peace that is signed in the movie Star Trek The Undiscovered Country, which kind of is like that movie is kind of like the origin for the TNG era, because in the TNG area, the Klingons and the Federation are kind of on good terms, and it has to do with the Khitomer Accords and Praxis and all the sort of stuff that's a metaphor for the end of the Cold War. So, and the Romulans did commit the Khitomer massacre, which killed many Klingons in a surprise attack. It left survivors like Worf, whose backstory is tied to the event, and then he became a orphan and was raised on Earth by, it's like Roshenko. That's the Roshenkos.
I know this probably isn't accurate, but Worf does strike me as the kind of person who is raised by two moms. And I think that's beautiful. And I know it's not historically accurate, but Worf feels like the guy. He's like angry, he's tough, but he cares. And I feel like he has the energy who'd be like, oh wait, so like he'd like two like human lesbians would show up on the ship, and he'd be like, these are my moms. Like he'd love them, but begrudgingly. And I think that's beautiful.
I think there's like only one episode where you meet his human parents. They did a real disservice, because like the whole thing with Worf is that he was like raised on Earth because he was like a little kid when his parents died, but he like tries really hard to like be super Klingon-y, and he kind of succeeds and fails in different varieties. But kind of like what they did with Spock for a lot of his thing is like they didn't really let him embrace his human side very much, and it's a little I'm not saying that they didn't do anything with that. I feel like there was more they could do about exploring his like twin identity and everything like that, but especially when he has a kid. And his kid, like,
see, this is specifically why I know I need to watch Deep Space Nine, because I loved Worf in Next Gen, and I know he's in Deep Space Nine.
He's great in Deep Space Nine.
A bit.
Okay, cool. I think around season 3 or 4, he becomes a part of the regular cast. He's like one of the main characters.
So good.
Yeah,
what a good character.
They had to do a whole thing in First Contact to get him back on the Enterprise for that movie, because he was on Deep Space Nine. So they had to write like a whole, the Defiant's here and it's in trouble, and we had to rescue him just for this one adventure, that kind of thing.
I guess I didn't notice that. I've seen First Contact, but I never noticed that. That's interesting.
Well, he shows up in the Defiant, which is the ship from Deep Space Nine.
I don't know. I just thought he was doing his own thing, Tristan. He was doing his own thing. He's got his own life.
I do know Star Trek. This is like the one thing I do know. Okay, so that is my
Are
shame.
you sure? The correction that we just answered begs to differ.
Yeah, that was a bad one for me, I gotta say.
All right, any other ones we want to tackle?
We've got 2 more, and I think they're pretty quick, so I think we can.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. Really, really fast. A nautical mile is 6,000 feet. Incorrect.
Yeah.
A nautical mile is 1,852 meters.
Or about
6,076 feet.
Close enough. I feel like that, yeah. I think that must have just come up as a side thing in an episode where we were just like, is a nautical mile different than a regular mile?
Yeah.
And neither of us wanted to just type in the few words into the internet to
fair
figure
enough.
it out.
That is all.
So
thank you,
for
Bizarre
cover
Brain
correction.
Comics 7819.
Thank you for doing the work that we didn't want to do.
Yep. One more. Okay. So this is an email we got from Wiley. I wanted to thank you for your podcast, in particular, very particular, a few lines of exposition from episode 122 on Victor Schauberger, right about 33 minutes in. Recent events have prompted many thoughts and conversations with others that are attempting to make sense of the dangerous rhetoric and actions by people in power. I have continued to reflect on the idea that you mentioned in the episode about romantic ideas. It has been a nice reminder of how they stand out as non-empirical in character and relate to ideas like individualism, will, subjective emotional experience, and longing for a mythic past full of mysticism. These ideas seem to once again be very popular and seductive to those looking for meaning. It is worth remembering that as noble as inspiring as they can be, they also can lead to people making a flying saucer that is powered by essentially a flushing toilet because, water is alive and it wants to help win a war.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's slightly off topic, but I would love to hear you two discuss more of these romantic ideas and ideals and how they continue to hijack our fantasies and let us believe in magic and call it hidden science. Also, Scott, the reality stone in the Infinity Gauntlet is an exaggerated representation of will as described by Schopenhauer. Not really, but it should give you a funny thing to talk about.
Thank you for the layup. I appreciate it. Oh, gosh. What a good email, though. I think that was... remind me of what this episode was. We were just talking about Victor Schauberger.
Yeah, this is the person who thought that they had built a sort of flying like UFO machine using like the sort of Coriolis effect of water.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one of the things that is like a thing that we don't think about is how the sort of fascist ideology that led to a lot of to the Nazi regime has its origins in romanticism. So I don't know if they cover this in too much. Do you know much about this or no?
No, hit me with it. I know nothing. That's my thing.
Okay.
That I do on this podcast.
So many people have, what's your like concept of the term romantic?
Giving my wife a foot massage. The things that she would think are romantic are paying bills on time, wearing a tie, saying sweet things.
So,
yeah, that's about it.
So I'm curious.
Letting her show me all the TikToks she's accumulated throughout the day. It's pretty romantic.
As we mentioned while you're watching TV.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think that it makes sense to me, or why I would say that romanticism or romantic thought is what led to fascism?
Is the question, how are those two related?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
How did the idea of what like the term romantic come? Like, how did that?
Okay. I am going to guess that romanticism is this idea of it feels like this thing of wanting to emphasize like feelings and how I feel, and I want to be inspired by something. And what can I be inspired by but a great man? And a great man is what can change the world. And the great man, we put all of our chips in one basket and have this one great man rule over everything. And then we stepping stone to fascism. Am I close?
You're very close, actually. So,
oh hell yeah, dude!
Yeah. So, and I think that, and this will be my hot take for the episode to finish on. I think that this is the idea of romanticism, and specifically what romanticism was a response to, can fundamentally describe the difference between the left and the right when it comes to politics today. We kind of talked about this actually before the show, and it would perfectly fit. So, in the 18th century and in the early 19th century, you had this period of intellectual thought called the Enlightenment. So you might have heard of this term. Like, this is like a development of philosophy and a focus on like empiricism, the idea, objective observation, scientific understanding of things,
proven things, true and false.
Yeah. And this became a pretty powerful and widespread idea that informed politics, informed states, informed all sorts of things. Then romance, the Romantic movement, was a sort of backlash against this, which was like, actually, like, we can't understand the world through like, science, objective, empirical measurement. We do need to like elevate subjective experience. We do need to like, emotion and things, but like also that stories are important and those kinds of things. And that fits into like a looking back into the olden days and how back in those days, things were simpler. A lot of, unfortunate for me and a lot of nerds, like this is what the fantasy genre sort of leans into. Tolkien fits a lot of this like romance idea of like objecting to the mechanical and scientific with about feelings and like guts and like stories and heroes and like and really like leaning into that. And so you had like a lot of debates about like how to raise kids in the mid 19th century, where like there was literally a debate about like one side would be like, you need to be like, harsh, authoritarian, cruel, and do this. In the other side, there was like a very legitimate and very like, prosperous movement that was like, no, you should like let kids just be whoever they want to be. Don't give them any guidance whatsoever. Like both of these are like toxic parenting styles, but like, but in completely different directions. And the need to like have the specific part about romanticism with like the idea of stories and heroes and things like that is the part that then turned into like nationalism and would eventually lead to like dictatorships and fascist idea, but specifically about the key part of romanticism over the Enlightenment, which was that subjective experience was more important than objective observation. And to quote one Benjamin Shapiro, facts my feelings should not be subject to facts. And
to quote Ben Shapiro, feelings don't care about your facts. I think that's what he says.
Yeah. So in my mind, when you look at the ideological underpinnings of the left and the right in modern day politics, you have the left, and by left I'm not meaning liberal, I'm meaning like left-wing politics, which has its roots in like Karl Marx and Marx and like socialism, like socialism has its roots in like Karl Marx and Marxist theory, which was an attempt to empirically study the economy in the way that it functions today and understanding it not in the way that it's supposed to be or that it's like in its ideals, but in like brass tacks, like how it works. Like his 3 books, that is literally just the most thick description of how the economy just functions and its like actual things, is over 3,000 pages of text. It has math homework. It is like, it's very like mechanical, empirical, is based on direct observation. While liberal ideology is very much based on like, well, who deserves stuff? Like, and about like, like the whole, like, we need people to
meritocracy.
Pull people up. And the thing is, like, we were talking a little bit before the show about how frustrated I get with how people talk about in Canada here about how we can, about oil and gas and how we like need to, we need to like be less, like politicians, if they want to win, need to be less intense about climate change and oil and gas because it'll get us more votes in the West. And it's like, we are literally like changing the fundamental chemistry of our atmosphere for the first time.
Yeah.
Like there are atoms that are in the atmosphere that we have put in there that had not been in the atmosphere since like hundreds of millions of years
Right.
ago.
It's I think, as you had put it, like it is trying to bargain with chemistry, to negotiate with chemistry, and tell all the chemicals in the air, well, think about the economy.
Yeah. And it's like
they don't care.
Yeah, nature doesn't care about, like, the universe doesn't care about the economy. It doesn't care about jobs. It doesn't care about how well you're going to do in the prairies. We are fundamentally changing the chemistry of the planet, and that will have consequences that no amount of debate. And in my mind, the definition of right-wing politics, and honestly, like, at its philosophical core, this is not even like me making a leap, but the philosophical core of fascism is that if reality doesn't fit what you want reality to be, you should have what they literally called the will to power. Like, you should, like, through sheer force of will, force reality to conform to this thing. So, like, if these people are bad in your mind, it doesn't matter that they're not bad. Like, reality is not important. It's about forcing reality to fit your notion. There's a really great soapbox moment at the end of Dan Olson's In Search of a Flat Earth, which I would argue today might be the best YouTube video on YouTube, that explains this idea pretty well. Actually, the entire In Search of a Flat Earth is like a really good explanation of, like, the flat earth theory is like a sort of like romanticist idea of approaching science, of like, I don't want it to be this way because I want to be able to fundamentally understand a simpler version of the world. So I will force reality to fit my thing. And that is, I think, the fundamental difference about, like, left and right wing politics. Left wing politics is, this is how the universe is. This is just like the objective reality of things. We need to work in accordance with that. And the right, like, you know, liberals, conservatives, fascists, as you go down the thing, are like, I have these subjective ideals for how the world should be, and I am going to ignore reality and force reality to fit what I think the world should be like. So
what you're saying is famed mythbuster Adam Savage accidentally created a new rallying cry for the right when he said famously, I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Yeah. Ben Shapiro honestly made a really great line that describes why I hate right-wing politics, which is, facts don't care about your feelings. Unfortunately, Ben Shapiro doesn't seem to realize the irony of the statement he said. But yeah, that's the corrections. It ends with me just getting mad at romanticism.
Hey, you're allowed to get mad, as I search for any sound on my soundboard that'll take us into a fun.
How do you move it?
A fun ending. How do you move it? I can do that one.
How do you move it?
There you go. How do you move it? How do we move on from this?
How do you move it?
The more I hear
Great
that,
question.
the more I hear Joe Biden.
Oh, you're right. Hold on.
How do you move it?
How do you move it?
But you know,
How do you move it, Jack?
do you know where there is no romanticism? And that is at Probs Not Aliens. You go to Probs, what's it called? Probs Not Aliens on Blue Sky. That's us.
Probs Not Aliens. You can search for us there. Tristan and I also do other things outside of this show. Tristan, whoa, buddy, hey, whoa, what's going on? What do you do outside this show?
I have a day job, but I have a YouTube channel called Step Back where I talk about kind of, if you liked that little bit at the end about romanticism, you'll probably like Step Back. That kind of fits the mold.
True.
I'm currently working on 2 videos. One is kind of come out in January, I'm guessing. But another one I'm trying to get out sooner, like November-ish, is going to be about how one of the most important tectonic shifts in global politics is happening. And most people in my, like, primarily American audience don't know anything about it because all the countries involved with it speak French. That'll be my teaser. But Scott, if I wanted to,
France.
One of them is France.
Lucky guess by me.
But Scott, if I wanted to learn more about Japanese Spider-Man, where would I go?
Supaidāman! Yeah, that's a video I did. I don't remember much about it because I think it was a collab video I did.
That was when you were in your ketamine era.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel called NerdSync, NERDSYNC. That's how you spell it. That's my channel. I make videos about comics and superheroes and cartoons and movies and all sorts of fun stuff. I need to do more. I've not done many video essays this year. I think I maybe did one, but I need to just sit down and just make reaction content. That's what I need to do. Unscripted, just look at stuff because I need to make videos. And all my video essay ideas are so big that they're taking so much energy from me. So I need to just do simple videos for a while. So forgive me if I do that. You can also find this show and support this show on Patreon, patreon.com/probsnotaliens. Yes.
Yep.
And
on Nebula.
You can support us there monetarily. Yep. And you can also do it on Nebula, nebula.tv/probablynotaliens. Both of those really help support the show, really helps us out if you have the money to give. But hey, if not, no worries. Don't worry about it. You can leave a review. Leave a review of the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. It really helps us out, helps people find us, helps people know what we talk about, what our vibe is. Describe our vibe. Describe the vibe of this podcast in a review. That would be fun. Do that. Write a haiku. Write a haiku of this podcast's vibe as a review. And we'll see what happens. You can also tell friends about the show. Anyone you think would have a good time with it. You know, just scream. Just scream at them. No context. Walk up to people and just go, "Probably not aliens," and then walk away.
That's my TikTok strategy for the most part.
It's pretty good. A great place to send people is probsnotaliens.com. So maybe actually just scream probsnotaliens.com at them. That's a great place to send people for all the links to everything, where you can find the show, where you can support us, everything like that. That is everything. Tristan, as always, great talking with you. Great having a conversation. Good to have corrections. My name, until next time, and currently, this is a bad outro. Until next time, my name is Scott Niceone.
I'm Tristan Johnson, and the truth is out there, possibly.
Correction, Tristan. It's actually probably.
Oh, no.
I corrected you on our corrections episode.